So the Imotana Invader 1.0 was actually a boot that I did a long time ago on the channel, way back when I first got to Rochester. They're a German brand that does essentially production to fit the player, which is a really interesting way to create football boots. And in today's video, I'm going to be reviewing their new DNA to discover, number one, do they actually fit any good? And number two, do they actually perform well as well, given that several Bundesliga players are wearing them and they've seemed to grow in popularity since I last reviewed them in 2021. Let's jump into the unboxing, or the unbagging, if you will. Now, full disclosure, Imotana sent me this pair of football boots. They do not get to see what the review looks like prior, nor do they get any input on this video. That is a pretty common occurrence as far as my channel goes. When brands send me football boots, I just basically tell them, you can send me whatever you'd like, but I can't tell you anything about what I'm gonna say, nor can I tell you what the video is gonna look like until it's actually published. So when you are seeing this, so is the brand. All right, let's get these unbagged, if you will. And here we go. Ooh, nice. White and blue. Okay. Very cool. Now, I actually had zero input on these, even though these are technically a custom pair of football boots. There's a couple reasons for that, which I might go over, but these are the boots. So these are the DNA. Very interesting. Some kind of old Predator-esque type designing and also general shape, it looks like, which is kind of cool. I'll throw those right there as well. And here are the Imotana DNA. So as I said before, it's a German brand. It's a startup, actually, that specializes in tailor-made football boots. So they use 3D scanning technology through the VeriFit app, if any of you guys are familiar with that, VERIFYT, to create the perfect fit for each individual player. And you actually see that on the size tag, which I can't really show you on any of these cameras just because it's too small. But it basically says, no size needed, you ordered the perfect fit. Which is also kind of interesting because they said they were gonna send these to me, so either they still have my sizing and still have my feet measurements, or they've just sort of guessed based on my videos. But needless to say, these are pretty sweet, actually. I think I like the look of them, and it's a very cool graphic back here, which looks fairly straightforward in terms of printing and stuff on the upper, but very, very cool. So they actually don't have sizes, which is really interesting. So you have to, in order to actually buy a pair of Imotanas, you have to go in and scan your feet, which is pretty cool as well. And players can design their own boots using the 3D configurator, very similar to a Nike ID type of situation, or the Me Adidas, which doesn't exist anymore for obvious reasons. But yeah, options include colors, materials, other design elements for personalized look. My guess is this video will come out before the laceless model, but they also sent me the same DNA, but in a laceless construction. So I'd be interested to see what those laceless ones look like and feel like. My guess is they're gonna feel the exact same. One is just gonna have a lot better lockdown and performance. Now, from a upper standpoint, ooh, there's kind of something sticky on the bottom. It looks like there was a sticker right there that has been taken off. To be perfectly honest with you, these boots have a little bit of like discoloration. I don't know if they've been sitting on the shelf or something, but I gotta be honest, they look like they've been worn once or twice, if I'm not mistaken. The sole plate actually looks fine, so maybe not on a pitch, but they look a little bit like they came in a bag, so maybe this was just like an extra pair that they had that was in my size. I don't know, but yeah. In terms of an unboxing experience, not the most amazing thing in the world, but I do think it's a really cool concept, and I would hope that brands in the future, like actually Adler is doing nowadays, are taking not necessarily foot designs, but they're kind of giving you the option to do a wider fit or a narrower fit or different types of materials, or choose if you want carvo and stuff. This is obviously a different pair of football boots from a different brand, but you get the idea anyway. Each boot is custom made for a really snug, comfortable, and performance-driven fit. That's really the idea. This upper is a mesh-based synthetic material, if I'm not mistaken. There's not a ton of information about what this upper actually is, but given the way that it responds to my touch, and also the way it looks underneath this coating, it very much looks like a weave of some sort. And then you obviously have the knit material here around the collar, which is pretty flimsy. It reminds me a lot of the Skechers SKX 1.0 with like pretty floppy and not super high quality knit through the lacing system area. But realistically, it's more of a feel thing. If you have laces, the knit tongue actually doesn't really matter all that much in my opinion, because it's just going to make you feel like you have a sock on. And the lockdown doesn't really matter for the knit if the laces exist. If they don't exist, then of course the knit actually makes quite a bit of a difference based on how tough it is and how willing it is to stretch a little bit as well. So they are actually made in Indonesia, and they really value fair working conditions and things like that, which is awesome. And so they are not made in Germany, but the company is from, and they are designed in Germany as well. The sole plate has all diamond shaped studs, fairly simple stud pattern if you ask me, but that's not a bad thing at all. These also don't look overly aggressive in terms of potentially wearing them on AG surfaces, which I really like. So I'm going to test them out on AG, see how they perform, and give you some conclusions at the end of this video in terms of stud pattern. You can expect a 6-week time period-ish for delivery time, and they do, I believe, give a warranty as well for all their football boots. And they were featured on Kickstarter. For those of you entrepreneurial types who are watching this, they attracted attention because of the unique concept that they had, and it is definitely a unique concept. I do think that more boot brands have the ability to do this, and I think more brands are gonna have to go down the custom route simply because people want an individualized feel, you know, for certain boots or certain foot shapes that don't fit in a bunch of stuff that's on the market right now. It can be a lot better to go towards a brand like Imotana, who have actually quite some high profile clients in the Bundesliga and some other really high profile professional leagues where you get a perfect customized fit straight out of the box. Now, I'm saying that as if it's sort of assumed, but let's actually go and try these on and get them through a rigorous play test, and I will actually tell you whether these are custom designed for my feet or not, or whether these are just a pair that Imotana had lying around and wanted to send over, which is great. Thank you, Imotana. And also, are they really custom, or are they just saying that because they can say it? Let's hop into it. All right, guys, out on pitch with the Invader. Oh, not the Invader, the DNA. What am I talking about? That's the old model. Okay, so here we go. DNA out on pitch. This is a FG stud pattern, but I think these are going to be just fine on AG surfaces, so we might as well get them going here. Now, this is going to be the moment of truth, at least for me, in terms of whether or not they actually are custom built to my foot. Imotana, when they sent these out to me, didn't distinguish whether they had actually used my previous measurements or not. Here we go. Ooh. Yeah, not bad. A little bit snugger around the midfoot, but forefoot feels really good. I do have a little bit, as you can see, I've got a little bit of space, about a half a thumb's width of space on the toe. So I wonder if that's not really how I would usually get my boots in terms of custom fit. I like them to be super, super tight, but we'll see. Maybe this will actually play to my advantage. One thing I'm also noticing right away is the how do I say, the laces don't really go very far back. So I get a little bit of bubbling right there already, which hopefully doesn't affect the lockdown too much, but yeah, looks pretty good, honestly. I like them on feet. The blue is obviously sick. The white, black, and blue is like my favorite color combo. I'm actually in the process of doing some rebranding right now, and that's gonna be part of the rebrand, which is kind of exciting. All right, there's the right foot as well. So similar, just a little bit of extra space on the toe. I'm not sure, let me know down in the comment section below if you guys like space on the end of your toe. I prefer basically zero space. So that's kind of where I'm at. What is that pressure point? Am I totally, what is going on here? What's on the inside of that? I don't know. Okay. There's like a weird pressure point on the medial side of the boot. Very strange, like right there. That is super weird. Okay, hopefully that does not persist, because that's going to get really annoying if that kind of persists over the course of shooting, particularly because that's like the sweet spot for shooting. But needless to say, we are going to jump straight into the footwork, but overall feels pretty comfortable. I would highly doubt that these are made with my measurements, because
they're not a perfect fit straight away. They're definitely feel good, but they feel a little bit big. Heel feels a little bit, I don't know, not necessarily like gapey, if you will, but definitely not like 100%. Yeah, okay, so heel slipping a little bit, which actually makes me a little bit worried for the laceless model, if I'm honest. But here we go. Yeah, 4 foot, I think 4 foot feels pretty locked in. Heel area is slipping already with this type of stuff. So hopefully this isn't a future 8 rage quit video, but we'll see. I think the biggest thing with this type of boot, which actually, if I would say the most comparable boot that I can think of right now to this, is the Predator Freak. Oh my God, ow. What the hell is that pressure point? Ooh, man, that is not comfortable at all. Hold on. Get through these. Yeah, there's a really, really weird pressure point, like on the top there and on the inside. I don't know what that is, man. That is not comfortable. Maybe it's the laces? Who knows? Man, this is off to a really not great start. Let's get into some footwork. All right, so first little touches on the ball. I imagine they're going to be pretty similar to the previous generation in terms of, or the Invader, which is like basically the same. Yeah, okay, so very, very freak-like in terms of the stability of the upper. If you really like kind of a stiff knit material, definitely a boot that I would recommend. Although, to be honest, I am feeling already a little bit like these aren't gonna soften up all that much. And that's kind of, I don't know, the upper coating, this like scratchy kind of extra coating on the top is pretty stiff, which I reckon will actually be great for shooting. But in terms of touch on the ball, like, yes, okay, juggling is easy because the exposed knit material right on the lacing here is pretty thin, and it's, again, not super high quality if I'm honest, but the toe box area feels okay. I mean, look, I think it's the sort of the price you pay for a custom style boot like this, where you have to kind of use material that isn't overly premium unless you have a crazy, crazy, crazy high demand, which I think at this point Imotana doesn't have. So that's, I don't know, something to think about, which is not necessarily an excuse, but it's definitely something to consider when looking at a pair of these. Now, I got to admit, albeit them being pretty stiff, whether it's just a little bit damp on the ground, it did rain quite a bit last night, so whether it's that or whether it's just the fact that these boots are, I guess, supposed to be custom fit, they kind of have started to break in just a little bit. I don't actually have any hot spots, which is kind of wild considering when I first had the boots in hand, I genuinely thought I was going to have so many issues. The Predator Freak in particular had such a narrow midfoot and such a wide toe box. It was a very, very awkward shaped boot. These ones have a very similar shape to that, but the midfoot actually isn't all that structured. So it feels like it's sort of stretching and molding, which is a good thing. And the hot spots on the top of my foot have gone away. So we're moving in the right direction already. So this is where I think we're gonna really feel where the heel lacks, in my opinion, because the upper does have a decent amount of structure to it. This is actually the drill that I rage quit with the Puma Future 8, but basically here, and as I take a touch here, right? So it's this planting where you can really feel the heel area sort of slip out of the shape of where you want to be. And so as I make these movements, that's what I'm kind of looking for here. Yeah, okay, it's not too bad. I don't feel completely unstable and I'm falling out of the boot like I did with those Future 8s. Yeah, okay, all right. Not too bad, not too bad. It does feel pretty disconnected, if I'm honest. Like, Yeah, it does feel a little disconnected just because the upper is pretty stiff and that extra coating, that like blue spiderweb material is pretty stiff. So let's keep going with it. All right, same thing, other side. Again, really feeling out that touch. And yeah, it just, man, it doesn't really, the upper doesn't really allow me to move my toes all that much. And especially when I'm coming this direction, right? So if I, and this is true for the other side as well. If I'm gonna plant, right, no problems, heel doesn't slip all that much, but then I wanna get certain type of bend and whip. You wanna be able to like flex your toes in different way. That's why it's so fun to play barefoot, because you can really experiment with the type of shot that comes off your foot. So in that case, that's just a side foot, but like that's easy because I'm not really doing anything in terms of flexing my foot uniquely. But let's say that I take a shot like this and I wanna go dipping, like that's fine, right? That's okay because it's a little bit more of like a laser shot, or I don't know, that's a really childish way of saying that. That's like being like, oh, let's name our team the Blue Tigers, right? Which is great because that's creative and kids are awesome. That being said, when you change the shape of the shot like that, it doesn't feel as controlled as other knit boots like a GX, for instance, where the way that I flex my foot is reflective in the material, actually changing and molding the shape so that I can get a little bit more of a unique shot. Yeah, sure, those shots were nice, but like, I want a little bit more feeling to my shots in general. All right, a little more interesting shooting drill here. We're just gonna get around here, play. Nice, a little bit more aggressive maybe there. Ideally, I was actually kind of hoping that the bounce off the wall would be a little bit more like to me. Maybe I'll shift this around so it's not as like crazy angled. Maybe like that. And that way I can wrap my right foot around it. That's the idea with this one. But needless to say, they perform pretty well. Sole plate is nice and stiff. I actually think the sole plate does a nice job. Let's see if I can make this work. Oh yeah, that works fine. Oh, that's a great shot. The sole plate works pretty well. Those little diamond studs, which take up obviously the entirety of the upper, or the entirety of the sole plate. As we talked about in previous videos, right? You can tell flexibility on an AG surface, and I'll go here so you can see on both camera angles. But if I stand straight at the B cam and I go up on my toes and I pivot, at what angle does the boot stop pivoting? And that's how I at least measure sort of the aggressiveness of a traction on an AG surface. So these are FG and they're turning like not even 45 degrees. So they're very, very aggressive, because a lot of the diamond studs are this way as opposed to like all sorts of different angles, right? So if I put my foot up towards you guys, all the studs are kind of that direction. So it just means that you're not gonna get a lot of, if you can see on the other angle, you're not gonna get a ton of pivot power. It'll give you a little bit if you kind of are light on your toes, but if I'm stuck in the ground and I move, that's about as much grip angle, if you will, as, hello, one touch. Get in. Oh, my right foot is feeling it today. Yeah, so again, I think it's just up to you then to decide, like, do you want something this aggressive? Do you want an upper that's like very, very solid? If you do like that solid upper, these are definitely a boot to consider. Last little drill here before a little bit of fun with free kicks and some crossbar challenge by popular demand. Let's see if we can't get a couple rips on the left side as well. Here we go. Nice. Again, I don't mind the stiffness all that much. I just think it's a little unbalanced. The boot's a little unbalanced in terms of the sort of the quality of the knit material, and it doesn't feel like a cohesive package, unfortunately, which is just annoying because I think, nice. It's just a little annoying. Like, I don't like boots that don't feel like all the parts were meticulously thought of and kind of created, if you will. And so that's why I think if you're somebody who's looking for Oh, wow. If you're looking for a boot that's in the knit category, that's like a Predator, I guess you could get this. But in terms of like knit boots compared to the Tequila, the GX, what am I forgetting? The SKX even, like I'm picking all of those over these because of the imbalances, which we'll talk about in just a sec. The imbalance that I'm kind of talking about is basically the difference between the quality of the knit and / the mesh-based synthetic material on the upper, and then this material here. Like this material is really floppy. It's not super nice around your foot. It doesn't like hug your foot like a good knit would. Like a good knit would. You can make a bloody song out of that. Here we go. Not bad. A little bit higher maybe. But I think the disconnection between like the top of my foot and then the rest of the solidity of this upper is a little bit, I don't know, it doesn't give me all that much confidence, which is kind of, you know, what you're looking for in a pair of football boots. Nice little top spin, but not quite there yet. One more. How about 0 power all placement? We'll just get it right in the upper corner. Here we go. No talking. There you go. Nice. Love that. So it just, again, striking surface, fine. Lateral stability, fine. It's actually quite good because it's pretty stiff on the lateral side here and the medial side here. There's quite a bit of structure, but then that lace area just doesn't feel all that great, which makes me really worried about the laceless option, if I'm honest. So stay tuned for that one. All right, crossbar challenge, as promised, always. Let's go right foot first. Why not? Right foot first, little ping. That was very laissez-faire, but that's all right. First video of the day. Oh, wow. All right, well, you shouldn't buy the DNA. No, I'm kidding. Okay, so let me turn off the B cam and then we'll do a little bit of an outro. All right, the Imotana DNA in this laced model, I think falls definitely above the Future 8 in terms of wearability, desirability, and it's kind of cool that they do the like no sizing thing. But in a similar vein to, I think what I said about the Invader, it's been a really long time since I did that review, which is basically the same boot. These are starting to hurt my foot on the outside, by the way, so that's just something to consider. So they're not like fully custom. They're just sort of like in a mold that's about my foot shape and size. I think this is a really cool concept. I think a lot of other brands have the budget to and the facility to create something like this. And I do like that these boots exist. That being said, I will probably never decide to actually wear them in a match or a training session situation because there are so many other boots that I would rather wear ahead of these, simply because of kind of the way that they're constructed. They're just not what I'm looking for in a boot. That being said, as I said before, if you are a Predator Freak fan, a Predator Mutator fan, like those, this feels very similar to that, particularly the grip element. The grip element's very similar to an SKX. They're like precision strike control stuff, which essentially is just a fancy way of labeling an extra bit of synthetic coating or polyurethane that's like over the top in this kind of spider web pattern. But overall, I mean, again, I think from a philosophy standpoint, I think these are really cool. I like the fact that they do custom colors and they do, you know, laceless and or laceless and laced boots. And I think the custom fit thing is like, it's cool. I do wish they had a little bit more information on actually what was happening. So are they creating actual custom boots for each person based on the scan, or are they just sort of telling you? I think there's really big improvements that need to be made to every part of this boot. The only thing that I think actually is like not super, it's not remarkable, but it's also like pretty decent is the sole plate. I think the sole plate actually is great. It's very neutral in terms of being an FG sole plate, and it's definitely something that I actually don't mind playing in all that much. So sole plate is good. Upper needs to be a little softer, I think, and maybe that just comes with break-in time. I don't know. I was definitely feeling some hot spots here on the outside while I was playing in this first session. The knit needs improvement for sure. I would also do extra lace holes deeper towards the ankle. And then the heel area really needs improvement. Right now it's pretty cheap feeling, and the padding back there is like, it looks really puffy, you can see. So it looks really, really puffy, but then you put your feet in there and it just like goes, it just compresses almost instantaneously. And that's just like poor quality materials in my opinion. So there's a lot of things you could do with that. You could put the mattress material that TLSS uses from Temper. You could use what does Puma have now? Ortholite from Puma. There's a lot of different materials you could put back there. And right now it just feels really cheap. So I think that's the one thing that maybe I'm not getting over is like, if you're gonna pay full retail price for a pair of custom football boots, I almost would say, hey, Imotana, go for a higher value customer, i.e. not higher value innately. Hopefully you guys understand what I'm saying. Basically a customer who's serve the customer who's willing to pay $350 for a pair of custom football boots and get the materials right, as opposed to cheaper materials and going for, how would you say, a less quality football boot. So that's gonna wrap up today's video of the Imotana DNA 1.0, I would imagine, because they're basically the Invader, but just a different silo. Hope you guys enjoyed that video. If you did, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Join the free newsletter. Every week there are boot comparisons and tier lists and all sorts of stuff that come out on there. And of course, have a listen to the new podcast, The Boot Report. Lots of cool stuff there. Hope you guys enjoyed it. As always, be awesome. Take care. I'll see you guys in the next video.